Very good afternoon, members. This is the meeting of Dumfries Common Good Fund Subcommittee of Wednesday, 30th of November. We have We have 9 members present in person and 5 on Teams. We have a community representative in the council hall as well. So it's 10 present and 5 apologies. Thank you. The first item on the agenda is the appointment of a chair. Can I have nominations, please?
Provost.
I heard that in stereo, Provost. So, is there anybody else that's interested in becoming chair? No. Okay. Are you happy with that, Councillor Little? She's making her way to the top seat, so I guess Councillor Little is happy with that. Thank you very much.
Oh, what a treat you lot have got me twice in one day. So, Darren, I think you've just done the Sediment and apologies, have you?
Yes.
So I give my chair's approval for remote participation. Now, do you need me to go through the... Yeah. So, good morning, members, and welcome to this meeting of the Dumfries Common Good. It's been live streamed and recorded, and the recording will be made available on the council website for public listening. Remote participants, please follow the good practice guidance, which includes muting microphones and switching off your video when you're not addressing the meeting. Writing speak in the Teams chat function when you want to contribute, and if you're in the hall, you can do this on your iPhones or your iPads. Please don't repeat contributions already made by other members. No material should be posted in the chat function if it's intended as part of the discussion. And the usual standing orders apply, including that any votes will be undertaken by roll call. If any member is to leave the meeting, please either leave the Teams meeting for that period of time or write leave in the Teams chat function and then join when you rejoin the meeting, so we can keep track of whether the meeting is quorate. All members should speak clearly and directly into the microphone when making contributions, and when referring to reports, please provide reference to the relevant page and paragraph to allow everyone to follow. Please focus contributions on areas where clarification is required and to propose an alternative to a recommendation. So, do we have any declarations of interest? Councillor Lowe?
I've just been appointed to the Nith District Salmon Fishery Board. Obviously, that was only an hour ago, but if that is ever needed.
I don't think that would be classed as a declaration of interest, because as that appointed that would be good for you to have that information anyway to be able to share with the group. So no other declarations of interest. We go to item 4, the financial report, the report by Head of Community Service. Now, do we have someone to speak to that? Oh, so we have Darren Burns here in the room to speak to that. Do members have any questions? Councillor Campbell. Why did I just forget?
Thanks, Provost. Yeah, it's just on the income in the financial report. A number of common good land has been sold over several years. There's no reference of any financial gain to the opening cash balance. I don't know. I think any common good land that's sold or assets sold, it should make reference in the financial report.
Has there been any sold?
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Campbell. Any land that's is sold would come in as income to common good. I think the last land it was sold was a piece of land around about, we agreed, round about Newbridge, sort of kind of beside Glasgow Road. Maybe that transaction's not fully fully come to an end. And before that, there was issue in and around Parkhead, which was sold, and then well, we all know the issues around that. So, but yeah, I think we'll make it explicit if there's land sold. We might actually say in future that to be absolutely clear, make reference that there's been nothing sold in that period, so members aren't wondering whether it's included or not.
Can I just come back in, Provost? Thanks. Yeah, I get that, but I know of around 5 or 6 pieces of land that have been common good. There's no reference at all. I know the one you're talking about up at Newbridge. I can remember that coming to the common good and also to FPT and then finally E&R, I think it was. But yeah, I'm disappointed not to see any financial gain, particularly when we've got some expenditure, our biggest one, and you reiterated it earlier on, which is the fishing. That keeps eating away at what's left in the balance. There'll be very little left, so it'd be a welcome sight to see any addition from common good land that's been sold. Thanks, Provost.
I think, as Darren said, I don't think if there's any that's been sold in the past year, it's probably not come to fruition, and probably the funds aren't in the account as yet. Perhaps maybe you could look into that, Darren.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Councillor Campbell, what we'll do is I'll ask Property Services just to, give us a current position, and if members are happy, we'll sort of kind of send that around everyone.
Councillor Hislop.
Thank you, Provost. It's with regard to the fishing, the paragraph 3.5 on page 5. The expenditure the income is slightly higher than expenditure and is predicated on the Nith Salmon Fishery Board continuing their rebate. Have we confirmation of that rebate yet? And if not, would it be prudent to actually withhold some of the proposed small grants budget so that if we don't get the rebate, we have funds to actually cover any rates that we need to be levied?
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Hislop, Chair. I suppose this is the way that we've presented it, in previous years. We have no confirmation as yet, Councillor Hislop, on the rates of value. It's something that we eagerly await because we have been benefited, from generous rebates from the Fishery Board due to their understanding of the situation recently, and the income additional incomes that they make through consultancy work and the likes. I guess in the sense of that would be one approach that members we could consider. It's not something that's been presented in the report in that way, because I think we're fairly hopeful we would find some sort of rebate. If it transpired that no discount was provided, it may be in the sense of that what we would do is just utilise the cash balances for this year, and then come back, when we're presenting this next year again, we'll have a clearer position. We've always had some form of discount, and I think it would be very surprising if we went from a fairly significant discount to no discount over one year, but certainly it's something that we do keep an eye on, Councillor.
Chair, I'm just wondering, do we have any knowledge of whether there has been a lot of consultancy work done by the Fishery Board, because that's where the most of the rebate comes from, earnings by the board. Now, we've seen 2 or 3 years of COVID whereby other rivers might not have been contracting with the board for the expertise that we have on the board. And do we know if this is the case, or are we just left to sort of wait to the end of the year, see what the profits are, and then we get divvied up our share?
Clearly, it's the Fisheries Board's decision how they reach the levy that's applied. You are right. Much of that is, dependent on other income that they receive. I'm not aware. I've not been advised that they're undertaking less consultancy work. And I wouldn't like to say it was, we just wait and see. But once we get the levy in, we've got a clearer position on this. So it might be, this year, if it turned out that there was no discount, we maybe have to take the hit, so to speak, and then reposition ourselves for next year, recognising that there may be no further discount. And that being the case, I think it would open the conversation, albeit we had, a fisheries seminar, earlier this year. It may open the conversation for members on looking at fishing, the common fishing.
No, yeah, it's a good point, Ivor. This is a hot topic. The fishing's always a hot topic within this committee. I'm not sure. I think that it would be a good idea to hold back from grant funding to other people until such times, because we don't know when we're going to find out. We might find that we wouldn't be giving out any grants, when groups need it. Because we'd be holding back until we find out with the Fishery Board. And the consultancy work, I don't think we usually get information on that until such times as they're coming forward with their report regarding what our fees are going to be, isn't it?
Yeah.
That tends to be. So it may be a lot of time. We may be waiting a few weeks, maybe waiting a few months to find out whether we can give out grants. But as you know, from the seminar and from previous committees, it is a hot topic, the income and expenditure of the fishing in the town waters. Councillor Ferguson.
Thanks very much, Provost. When we were talking earlier about some of the common good land that had been agreed to dispose of, there's a significant part in in Sandside that's going to an RSL. Now, so I think kind of picking up what Darren was suggesting here, I think we're needing a regular update from Property Services as to the progress through the system, and whether in actual fact, I think the legal terms, the keys have been handed or over, where the missives have been concluded and the money is in the bank, because there can be a significant amount of time it takes place when you get two sets of lawyers vying with each other. So can we make it a recommendation that we actually get for each Common Good Committee an update where we are on the sales and exactly where in the process we are with each of them? Does that make sense? Yeah.
Yes, Chair. Councillor Ferguson, that makes sense. I'm happy to go back to Property Services and for our next meeting ask them to provide a report on income from the sale of assets over the last 3 years.
You happy with that, Andy?
Yeah,
I'll add it as a recommendation.
Okay, I'm just aware in other spheres of the council, when we get into legal contracts between outside bodies and big business, for example, the time it takes to conclude can be significant. And people were, you made that decision 2 years ago, so why is the money not there now? And it's probably somewhere in the ether between two sets of lawyers.
Yeah, a very good point. Councillor Slater?
Yes, Darren, can I ask if the land's sold? You're selling land, common good land. I assume it's went through all the processes of community councils and people within the community, but are you selling that land at today's market prices, or is it being discounted in some ways? Also, the fact that I believe there was an investigation into how many common good properties we had, and I wonder if that's ever been concluded. Has there been a final result? We know exactly what the council own in common good land or in buildings or not. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Chair. The The sale of land is determined by, or the cost, the price that we sell it is determined by a committee. If they so wish to look at a discount, most of the land that we sell is usually commercial, because it's small patches of land typically that we have that's been asked for either by neighbouring, typically neighbouring properties. We have to look in the sense of the same way that any other committee does about the disposal of assets, and have justification if there was a reason for a discount. Common good land is subject to the same requirements under the Community Empowerment Act for community asset transfers. So that could be a way that land is sold at a reduced cost as well. On your final point there, Councillor, we don't have the sort of kind of final list of what's on our asset books for, or asset register for Dumfries Common Good. Property Services previously advised that they were, this was at a member seminar, back in February, March time, that they were working their way through common goods. Annan was just being completed, and we've been advised that we'd expect Dumfries to be concluded sometime in this coming spring. So there may be others added to that. I know that may come as a surprise, saying, well, it's been like that since 1975, but I think sometimes other bits of land turn up that perhaps the title hadn't been clearly understood.
I think it's fact that we've lost about 70% of our common good land since about the 1970s. The fact is, I believe the Scottish Government are looking at that, and Martin Geisel did a BBC programme, is Who Owns Scotland? And it's very difficult, I must admit. Some it's owned in the Cayman Islands. So, and I'm surprised as well that any sale of land or premises are not showing up in the P&L accounts here. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I'll note that comment, and as I said, for the February committee, we'll have a report from Property Services. In the sense of the P&L, I can only surmise that there's been no income from the sale of property, and that's why it's not been included.
Thanks for that, Darren. Thanks, Councillor Slater. Any other questions on this? Councillor Campbell.
Thanks, Provost, for letting me back in. Yeah, I welcome what Darren was saying there about the list of assets that Dumfries Common Good. We don't know if we own things until it actually comes to either an asset transfer or it's no longer required. And then they do the search, and then they find out that it actually is common good. So that's a welcome, finance. If it is no longer required, we can try and get the assets up. What I would like to know is also, do we know what the leases are? I mean, there's a number of common good assets that we lease, but we don't know what the actual arrangements are, how much we're getting from that lease. That also could be an income that could be coming into common good, for example. I'm just wondering if we can get that on a regular basis, so we know exactly, not just members on the common good, but the public in general. Thanks.
Yeah, I'm happy, for that to be included. I'll ask Property Services to include that in the report to us in February.
I think all those will be a welcome report back from Property Services. So no other questions? I don't have anything. Is Ivor needing to get back? Ivor, are you needing back in?
It was just a quick one on the property stuff. Not the stuff that we sell, but assets that we actually hold. When they come up for, say, somebody wanting a way leave over, do we maximise the income we get from way leaves, etc.? Because I remember at one committee we didn't, and I asked about it, and we actually got some income into the fund because, way leaves are something that being an ex-farmer, I know what you can get for electric lines or a water pipe going through. And it was just to make sure that our property services, when looking at common good land, maximise all the income they can get for whether it's way leaves or sales or rent or anything like that.
Your chair, through you, thanks, Councillor Haslam. I think property services do a good job in ensuring that we are maximising our income. I think it's more common if a utility company is looking to set up a site on some of the land, and we do get income for those occasions as well. But yeah, again, I'm happy in a sense with this report coming from property services. We can ask them to cover some of that background as well.
Thanks, Councillor Hislop, and thanks, Darren. So I don't see any more questions in the room or on Teams, so we'll go to recommendations. Members are asked to note financial outturn of the year 2021-2022, detailed in paragraph 3.2 and the appendix, and agree financial plan for the year 2022-23, detailed in paragraph 3.3 and the appendix, and to add a further recommendation to request a report back from property services with an update regarding sales of land and property. Okay. Councillor
And also
Campbell.
rents and
rents.
So other ways of bringing an income, provost.
Maybe that's it, income. That's a good way of putting the income. Right. Okay, everyone happy with that? So move to item number 5, Common Good Fund Small Grant Scheme 2022-23. Report by Head of Community Services. You as well, is that you as well, Darren? Okay, members have any questions or comments on this item for Darren? Councillor Slater.
Yes, Darren, a number of my constituents that came to me and asked about the cost of the fountain.
Chair, I find it difficult here, Councillor Slater.
Oh, sorry. Oh, well,
Can you maybe get closer to the mic?
I'll need to eat it.
And try and be a little bit louder. Thank you. And switch your thing on, your mic on. Thank you.
That's it. Yes, a number of my constituents have said to me about the cost of the fountain, and is it good value, especially when the town...
Point of order, that's not relevant. We're not questioning value here.
Okay.
We're questioning the points
Okay.
that are in the papers.
Okay.
And there is a fountain report further down in the papers. We're in item 5. Any other questions relevant to this item? No, we'll just go to recommend. Sorry, Councillor Campbell.
Yeah, if I heard Councillor Hislop right, he mentioned something about the, giving out the small grants until we know what the final outcome of the rebate is from the fisheries. I don't know if we want to take that into consideration for these recommendations. Thanks.
I'm happy to go with what members wish. Does anyone wish to? Does Councillor Hislop wish to propose this, or do members wish to discuss whether that would be a consideration to hold back these small grants until such times as we have information from the Fishery Board as to whether there will be a rebate? Councillor Dorward.
Thank you, Chair. I think timing is of the essence here, and I think we don't know, or we're not aware of the timings in terms of the rebate even. I think it would be prudent to commence the small grant scheme as quickly as possible. Thank you.
Thanks for that input. Anyone else have any comments? Councillor Campbell?
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, the money's there. We don't know what the rebate is going to be, and just to hold back this wouldn't be prudent. I think we should just get the money out if folk want that.
Thank you for that, I think. But it was also important to raise this, Councillor Campbell, that this had been raised by Councillor Hislop, just to make sure that everyone was happy with carrying on with these grants. Councillor Ferguson.
Yeah, thanks. Just in terms of inclusivity, that was a big word for me. At 3 point, where is it? 3.9, should we not also give the courtesy to the community councils who, whilst we do appreciate they don't have a vote, at least be allowed to comment on any application, but if it's in their area, rather than just the ward councillors? Or otherwise, we don't want them to be a token here, they need to be active participants.
Thanks, Councillor Ferguson. So, yeah, happy to, happy for that to be included if that's what members wish. What we're keen for is when we look at the grant scheme, we're looking for, once it's a closing date and it's been assessed, is we're then able to get the money out as quickly as possible. So if that could be done in a sort of kind of fairly speedy manner by engaging with community councils, I think that's something we could look to do.
I think we would maybe put a health warrant on to say, can you respond within X number of days if possible, because I do appreciate their volunteers, elected volunteers, but I think just in terms of including them fully in the process, they should get a chance to voice their concerns. Now, I do appreciate normally they would take that to a full committee, but maybe it's something we need to discuss with the community councils when they're forming up in case they get have somebody delegated, for example. I don't know. It's just a thought.
Yeah, we're happy with that. Yeah, Councillor Lowe.
I would just support that, because looking at the dates that the applications are going to be open, which is over 2 months, most community councils meet 1 or 2 months, so they're hopefully going to get a meeting in to see the
Some of them meet bi-monthly, you're quite correct, yeah. Any other questions, any other comments? Ivor, you would like back in?
It's just with regard to the fact that we're looking to delegate this to lead officers. I have no problem with that, but I do have a problem with the fact that if we allocate money as the applications come in, we might miss out on a good one that comes in on the 29th of January and the fund is empty. Or are we proposing to have it open for that time and then delegate the authority to award after that date, so that we can judge all applications? You know how we've had the sort of the money we put aside in the area committee for electricity, etc., for halls. That was in a first come first served basis. But I would like to think that we wouldn't miss out on good applications by just going as they come in.
So, are you suggesting that we leave applications until they're all in, or because I think we always do first come first served anyway? Because if we wait until someone may come in January when they could have been having the money, the grants in before then. I'm not sure what you're suggesting, Councillor Hislop.
Well, it's just the fact that December, most community groups are working on their Christmas fairs or Christmas projects. Then you're going into 3 weeks in January where you might just have one meeting that thing to discuss it, and then you have to work it up and have it in by the 31st. It just seems a quite tight time scale. And for a big project that £1,500 might just take you over the finishing line for your project, you might miss out because you don't have it either in time, or the time it takes to actually work it up, you've missed out because everything's been awarded.
Yeah, I get that now. So we'll definitely wait until the end of the closing date before anything was processed, before the officers processed anything. And I think you're suggesting if any come in after that date, if we can be considered also.
Well, it's more a case of once they're in on the 31st, that's the closing date. I'm happy with that, but I wouldn't like to think we're allocating them. If one comes in on the 5th of December and they got their money, and then by the 4th of January there's no money left, but there was a good project after that that we might have supported. That's the sort of idea. If they're all in that date and then the delegation is on the 1st of February, the money goes out with the scores, etc. That would suit me.
No, that's great. That's great clarity there, Ivor. Thanks. I think if the committee agrees to the applications not being processed until the closing date, and so there'll be no applications processed before that. That's fair. I can understand that. So if everyone members agree, a lot of nodding heads here and no dissent on the teams. So yes, that's fine, Ivor. Any other questions? Nope. Well, we just go to recommendations. So members are asked to agree the small grant scheme and criteria outlined at paragraphs 3.4 to 3.8 in the appendix. Agree to open the scheme for applications from the 5th of December to the 31st of January and to delegate the making of decisions to the lead officer in consultation with local ward members as outlined in paragraph 3.9. And to note the allocation of 13,000 to the small grant scheme in paragraph 3.5 and 4,000 financial contribution to the overall costs of the annual Good Neighbours Festival, paragraph 3.10. So we move to item 6, which is the Dumfries Fountain Restoration Project. And we have Leslie Ann in the room to answer any questions or comments on this item. So do any members have a question? Councillor Slater.
That's it. Just the other day, they were taking the fountain apart, and it's supposed to be, delicately done, I believe. And there was men hammering it with £4 hammers, which didn't really look very good, I must admit, especially when it's 140-year-old and it's made of cast iron. So I just wonder why it's been so roughly handled.
I'm not sure Leslie Ann would be able to answer that. Unless you want to come in with something, we can just note your comments. Councillor Slater, would you like to come in, Leslie Ann?
No, I think it's not something I can answer. So it would be a noting of comment.
So we note your comments anyway. Thank you, Councillor Slater. Any other comments? Or questions, should I say? I think we'd rather have questions. Any questions on that? No? Everyone? Oh, Councillor Dorward.
Thank you, Chair. Can I just commend the paper? Thank you, Leslie, for that. And actually commend the actions of saving this absolutely fantastic community asset for the town centre of Dumfries. Thank you.
Thank you for that. When we're talking about regenerating our towns, that's a fine example of regenerating our towns. Ivor, Councillor Hislop, you'd like to come in?
Just checking out on this. It says that the fountain belongs to Dumfries Common Good. Right. If so, can a third party apply for a grant for a piece of property that doesn't belong to them? Is it dynamically Dumfries or the Stove, etc., whoever's leading on this, they're actually applying for somebody else's property. I know a lot of grant applications usually come through for your own property, and some grant applications you can't give to council if it's various things, just to make sure that we're right here. We're not going to be landed with near £400,000 under 3.8 hole in the funding because the grant applications can't come to the council, etc.
Does Leslie want to come in on that?
Yes, the funding is from the Economic Development Capital Fund, and it's the council that is project managing this project. The funding that the Stove secured was for the community engagement in the first phase of the project, which was from the Hollywood Trust to engage young people in the fountain. So it's not related to the fountain as a property itself, but it was to support the process in terms of involving young people.
Thank you, Leslie. Are you happy with that response, Councillor Hislop?
Yes, it just sort of worries me if we're doing something that we shouldn't be doing, but that's fine. Happy with that.
No, seeking clarity is the right thing when there's questions still in there, but no, I'm happy to see that this is progressing really well, and it was quite an exciting thing to see the fountain actually going and know that all this work is going to go in to restoring something that was a massive thing to our town at one point, and it's just the right thing that we respect that. Mrs. Hastings?
When the fountain comes back and it's been repaired, what will be the maintenance project on it? Will be something that it's seen to every year when it's looked at? Because if the thing had been looked at in the first place every so often and on a care and maintenance rolling project, it wouldn't have gotten the state that it was in the first place, that it's had to be taken away and all that money spent on it. I just wondered if it was going to lie for another 20 years after it's been fixed, or is it going to be maintained?
Thanks for your question. I would hope that it would not be just lying for 20 years, but I'll turn that to Leslie for her to come in with the correct response.
There are different aspects of the maintenance, but basically the part of the lead consultant's role is to make sure that there is a full maintenance plan for the fountain when it comes back.
For years and years and years, hopefully.
Yes, it'll explain. The other thing to be aware of is that the coatings on the fountain to protect the cast iron are modern coatings that are going to be on the inside and the outside of the fountain, so that should help to prolong its life as well.
Any other questions from members? Okay, we'll go to recommendation. Members are asked to note the progress made to date on the restoration of the fountain and the anticipated timescale for its completion. Agenda item number 7, the tree preservation order. And we have Darren here again to answer any questions that members may have on this agenda item. Ms. Hastings?
What actual type of trees have been saved? Is it the beech tree, the horse chestnut tree, or is it another tree? Because there are a lot of scrubland down there that, in my opinion, shouldn't have been saved because they're actually volunteers, because they disappeared, nobody planted them. But the big trees that are there, they're worthy of being saved, but none of the rest. But it doesn't specify which ones it actually is. It just says trees on the path, along the path that's being saved. So I'd like to know what ones they actually are.
Can you answer that, Darren?
On the specifics of the trees, I perhaps can't answer, but typically with a tree preservation order, it's on trees that are worthy of keeping. So I would imagine it will be those specimens, but again, we can seek clarification from planning on that matter.
Councillor Ferguson?
So will we email all the community groups and members of the Common Good just with that update, Darren? Yeah, that'd be helpful. The reason I'm asking is because I know that community service used to maintain, you're right, in the past, the scrub along there and we didn't want them ending up getting a community service order against themselves. So, get my drift.
Thanks for that. Councillor Hislop.
Chair, the appendix, or whatever you call it, does detail it's all trees within the red-lined area. So it will be the main trees plus any coppicing that's maybe happened through natural regeneration. So it'd be any tree in that area. So we shouldn't be cutting, lopping or pruning any of the trees along that area without permission from planning.
Thanks for that, Ivor. I still think maybe a sort of more detailed update so that we know exactly what we're talking about here for members, and for, as Councillor Ferguson said, the community groups as well involved in the common good.
Your Chair, it may be useful in the sense of, you know, getting pictures of the area for those that don't know it, and that might provide some sort of kind of, you know, reassurance why the order's been, you know, placed.
Yeah. Mrs. Hastings?
Is the towpath common good?
I'm sorry, I don't know the answer to that. This is a kind of fairly, you know, routine order that's been placed, and what they do is they then send it to the landowner. Sometimes when pockets of land come up, to be honest, it comes as a surprise, and I think we were talking about that earlier in the agenda. We don't have 100% complete lists. It's only when title searches are carried out. So on the towpath itself, I'm not 100% sure.
Just that, frankly, the towpath is an absolute disgrace, because every time the water floods, it brings up silt. The silt is actually halfway across the path, whereas before it used to be cleaned. I used to walk my dog down there all the time. He can't get along there hardly, because there is so much silt and stuff at the side of it. The trees that they're trying to save, if they're saving them all, some of them they're just sort of appeared from nowhere because they were saplings. If they'd been cut down at the first place, they wouldn't have been in the state they are, because they look dreadful. For a path that's supposed to be something that it's the Burns Walk. I know people that go down there because they're Burns enthusiasts, and I'm quite sure they'll not be very impressed when they take a look at it.
I think this is where that clarification from Property Service and some photographs and stuff to see exactly what. And I was thinking, it's in the common good papers. Would that not indicate that would be common good?
Yeah, but that's the tree area. I think, you know, it's the trees, the area where the trees are common good, or whether the paths common good. It may well be, but that's not been detailed in the map. As far as in the sense of the maintenance of that, you know, it's certainly something I'll ask one of the services to look at.
Thanks, Taryn. Councillor Ferguson.
Yeah, I mean, it would really help if the map had been much more focused on the area, rather than telling us where the school was and the arts centre and all the rest of it was. We're not interested in that. We want to see the bit we're talking about here, and that's no disrespect to anybody. So even to get that blown up, when we're getting that clarity, would be really helpful, because it goes significantly more than that area. If that's, but I think what you're talking about, that it runs for quite a distance more than the area we're actually currently talking about here. So I think you're absolutely right, Darren. Is it the banking, right? Is the walk covered in part of common good? We need some clarity in that, and it'd be really helpful, I would suppose, and that clears it up for everybody. Everybody knows then. So if we can do that, it'd be great.
Yeah, Chair, I'm happy to provide that feedback to planning. I think there may be mixed ownership, because I think, if memory serves me right, and I could be wrong, I think there was another tree preservation order, but it was for council land, so there might be, in the sense of some's common good, some is council. But I think in the sense of that point about a zoomed in, particularly for a small area, with more detail, would be very useful.
I think, as you indicated as well, some photographs, it might make us see exactly what we're actually saving, and we may choose to to come to a different decision than if we're saving things that are actually obstructive, but we'll see if we can get those pictures. But Councillor Campbell.
Yes, thanks, Chair. Yeah, it's kind of going back to the previous report, you know, what is common good, what do we own, what don't we own, etc., etc. Now, it does mention about common good, or the trees on the land is owned. Now, when you go along that towpath, there's a high wall banking where the mature trees are, and it'll be the mature trees that we're trying to protect. There's been some good points about the saplings and things like that. They do have an effect even on that retaining wall. It's quite a big retaining wall. You know, if the maintenance isn't done and these take root, there's a potential for that wall to collapse along with the towpath, which could collapse into the river. So it'd be well worth finding out exactly what do we have as common good, or even if it's council owned, particularly that towpath, if it needs maintenance done, then maybe it should be done on a regular basis. Thanks.
Yeah, and raising those points about that retaining wall and such like shows how important it is, how vital it is that we do maintain these trees to stop from getting out of hand, even though we want to protect them, but we need to maintain them to a safety level as well. Councillor Slater.
Right. This towpath is a very popular walk, so many people use it virtually every day, but there is, as the other councillor said there is a large wall there about halfway down to before you get to the academy, which does need some attention. Some of the rendering has come away from the wall, and it would be good. I think the path should be maintained. There's no doubt about that. It's so popular. Thank you.
Thanks for your comments. As Darren's just said, that we'll ask
Okay.
Community Assets to have a look to see if it's their responsibility as well. But so, everyone, any more questions? Everyone done with the questions and comments and stuff? Okay, we'll go to recommendations. Members are asked to note the Dumfries and Galloway Council Nunham Towpath Dumfries Tree Preservation Order, TPO 0102/2022 of the 8th of July 2022 pertaining to trees on land owned by Dumfries Common Good Fund, detailed at paragraph 3.1 and the Appendix 1. That the order was made in the interests of visual amenity on the grounds that the trees are significant in both the setting of the towpath walk as well as being of high general amenity value along Edinburgh Road and Albany Place, Dumfries, and that the order prohibits the cutting down, chopping, lopping, uprooting, willful damage or willful destruction of the tree without the consent of the council as planning authority. And I don't think we need to put a recommendation about things coming back. I think lead officer here will bring back this to a future report, or just further on. Just send something round so that we can get that before a future report. Everyone happy with that? And thank you very much, Leslie, for being here to answer questions. And that leads, I have absolutely no other business deemed urgent. So thank you once again, members, for your input. Thank you very much.